You're so mean. Don't yell at me. Don't you know how sensitive
Well,
I
if you
am?
notice, we could. I don't care if we keep this in. If you notice, I said I hinted at the fact that we can deliver quickly if the client is there and
Wow.
available
For
and
sure.
gets their
I
stuff
knew what you were
done.
saying. I knew what you were saying.
You're listening to the Foundry Talk podcast with your hosts, Nate McLean and Perry Merritt. Take it away, boys.
Welcome back. My name is Perry. With me, as always, is my partner, Nate. And today we are talking with Dan Weiss. Sorry, I still screwed it up. President of adatasol company. Dan, we've been chatting a little bit here about what you guys do, but why don't you fill us in a little bit about how you got started? You've been in the business a long time, almost as long as me. And I'm just kind of curious to your background and the company's background. What got you going?
Sure. Yeah, I've been around. Can we swear on the podcast?
Before there were podcasts, that's for
I've
sure.
been around.
Before there were
What'd you say?
podcasts, that's how long we've been around.
Yes. No, well, actually, there's a story there too. So yes, I got into the technology business at the age of around 24 in 1993, and it started as literally going out to people's houses and small businesses to help them with their Macintosh computers. And in those days, we didn't have any connectivity whatsoever, so literally I had to drive from place to place. And around 1996-ish, I had a couple of small businesses kind of all in a row say, hey, we need some software for our business. This thing isn't working for us. And I started to look into building kind of simple databases and immediately recognized that I could make more money mainly doing that. And it was more fun and way more solution oriented. And so I pivoted the company to start to do that. It wasn't called adatasol at that point, but I want to say around, I don't know, 98, somewhere around there, we did pivot, we did rebrand to adatasol. We actually took a break for a little bit to market some software for internet service providers, dial-up internet service providers in those days. We did that for about 3 years. And then around 2001, when dial-up died, we came back to adatasol and started building the business up again for database solutions, and kept doing that. Along the way, we bought and sold some vertical market solutions as well. It's been a lot of ups and downs. And yes, in 2006, I did start a podcast around the kind of development environment that we've been using, and it had its own little heyday. We actually released about 200 episodes, and I was known very well known in my community. So that was exciting for its time. Did it again from 2006. I mean, so in those days, like, we were one of the first probably 20 podcasts. And then, podcasting started growing, and I did it for about 4 or 5 years. So,
Wow.
Yeah, that was fun.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Thanks. Thank you. And we build software for everything. We still do. So we don't focus on one environment, one type of business, but we focus on the company and who's interested in our software. So,
and one of the things I noticed on the website, you really do talk about it being sort of pan industry. I mean, across multiple industries. And a lot of our talking has been about foundries, but your software really reaches itself into a lot of different places, right?
Yeah. So again, what we ascribe to is we build software for visionaries. So what does that mean? Well, we're typically not building for giant companies unless it's with like a work group in those companies. But it's much more typically for, what I would consider small businesses, i.e. $3 to $20 million businesses. And typically those are, family-owned businesses. And we're usually dealing, at least at the beginning, with the owner, because the owner has an idea, or the owner is really unhappy with his current software, or is really unhappy with part of a process for his current software or his business. And so he comes to us because he or she comes to us because they have an idea for something better. And it's very important that that idea is always for their business first. Visionaries often say, I think this could be good for my industry, but we always say to them, sure, we'll talk about that in 2 years after we've built it and it's been used by you and you've gained value from it and ROI from it for your business first. And then we can relook at whether it's good for your market.
Yeah. So when you're talking about software, I mean, I want to use the word solutions because I mean, yes, it is software, but you're really solving a problem, right? You're really doing some kind of solution. And
Absolutely. Yes.
yeah, you talk on your website, you talk about CRM, ERP, project management software. Are those the kinds of things that people are coming to you with saying, hey, I want something different than what I have? Or is it outside of those sort of categories that people are coming to you with you?
Yeah, I mean, so those are all marketing terms, right? I mean, those are all acronyms that are marketing terms that have come up along the way, and they change with time, right? I always love when someone calls me with a new acronym, and I have to admit I don't know what that one is, right? So you have MRP, ERP, CRM. I can actually remember the first time we built some software for one company. And then we went into kind of their larger partner company. And the guy, I showed them the software and I explained it to him and he said, oh, it's a CRM. And I'd never heard that acronym before. And I immediately lost him because I didn't know the acronym. And I think I didn't admit it, right? I just said, yeah, that's what it is. And that was a lesson for me to not admit when I didn't know something, right? And I think if I had just admitted it and that we could have had more of a conversation about, yes, this is a CRM, but it's so much more than that. That was a long time ago and I've certainly learned since then. But to your point, the one of the most important questions that I ask when I first talk to someone is, what do you have now? And why doesn't it do what you think what you want it to do? And then during the call, I'll Google, is there something out there that does what you want it to do? Because we really need someone to have gone down that journey of really knowing that their software doesn't do what they want it to do, and that there isn't something already out there that doesn't do what they want it to do. And many times, I'll Google and I'll be like, boop, 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 boop. There's 5 of the things out there that do this, what you're describing. And why don't you go spend a month, go look at that and go see if it does it and spend a little time and money on that. Because the other thing to very quickly understand about this journey is it takes time and money, right? And if there's something already out there, they've already spent the time and money on developing it, and it might do 90% of what you need, and it's typically going to be a lot cheaper than what we're doing, because that's like some sort of piece of SaaS software, and they're charging a subscription for it. And so it might cost $200 a month, or $500 a month, or $1,000 a month. Still going to be typically cheaper than what we're going to build for you. That's going to be exactly what you need, but for your business.
Yeah, sort of the notion of off the shelf versus custom, right? Yeah.
Correct. Exactly. Now there's downsides to that, right? I mean, the downside is, and you have to be really careful about this. You certainly don't own the software, right? At the end of the day, and you may or may not own the data, your data, right? Or you may or may not, you may own it, but they may have access to it, right? To resell it, to use it, to sell to you. In fact, nowadays, I guarantee one of those 3 things is true, right? Because the data is often worth more than you are.
Sure.
Right?
Well, I remember hearing the term.
You got to watch out.
I remember hearing the phrase, data is the new economy, right? Data is data will start showing up on balance sheets.
I think of it this way, right? So think about, like, you're buying materials for your Foundry, right? And whatever they are. And let's say you've got, and you're using the software, and there are 1,000 other customers using that software, buying similar materials, right? that owner of that software can aggregate all that data, go out to the vendors and say, hey, we can be a middleman here, or something like that, right? And or a million other related things related to that, to your customers, to your materials, to all of those things. So be really, really careful with whatever software, and make sure that you have some sort of proprietary access to it. And that if you decide to leave, of course, you can get all of the data as easily as possible. So.
Yeah, and if you're doing military work or government work, I mean, a lot of times you got to be ITAR certified and that sort of thing. So you got to make sure that your data is secure in some of those
Oh yeah, that's all.
situations.
Security is a whole nother situation, right? I mean, security. We could spend 5 podcasts talking about security, and I will tell you as an example, there are 2 things I don't like. We say no to. One is HIPAA, right? And related to that is anyone going to die using our software, right? We'll do critical software. We'll even do mission critical software, right? So to me, critical software is you can be down 8 hours, right? Essentially a business day, and it's bad. Don't get me wrong, it's bad, but it's not life threatening. It's not threatening, right? It's not even threatening to your business, right? Mission critical to me is you can be down, less than an hour at any given time, 24/7. Right? That to me, that's not even hospital, right? Hospital isn't even, I mean, people say that's mission critical. No. Hospital is the highest of high level mission critical, right? People could die, you can't ever go down, and that data is incredibly secure, right? And that's why, if you look, I mean, there's become, frighteningly to me, one leader out there in the medical ERP software. Epic owns that world, and it's a little scary to me, man. You think about how much data they have access to. Little side note there.
So Nate, you're I kind of alluded to this at the beginning of the talk. You're using Dan software, or you're working to use Dan software?
Yeah, we're working on a CRM and quoting solution that will make it much more easy for us to manage rather than using spreadsheets, and it's siloed information. So we're trying to bring all that stuff together so that more than one person can see it. Yeah, you can email PDFs and spreadsheets and that sort of thing back and forth, but having something that's centrally located that's more of a database in that regard is going to make us a lot easier to manage that. Also, to be able to see, a spreadsheet's pretty static, for the fact that you do a quote for a customer. Well, where is that quote at? What is the current situation of that quote? The status is have you gotten any feedback from the customer? Does that quote need to be turned into an order? Or is it active, or is it completely dead? If it's dead, then get rid of it and get it off the radar and close that out. So to make us much more easy to manage in that regard.
I just want to say, if I would love to have the people listening to your podcast, just raise your hand. We won't see it, but it's going to be embarrassing. But raise your hand if you are running a spreadsheet to run any part of your business. I would rather you run any other piece of software to run your business, because that is bad, right? Spreadsheets are not meant to run a part of your business. If you're using it as your sales tool, if you're using it as your estimating tool, your inventory tool, any part of it, that is spreadsheets are made for very simple things. I love spreadsheets. I use Google Sheets all the time, right? But the minute I have to relate any data at all, like a customer to an invoice or anything, customer to estimate, multiple customers, multiple companies, multiple addresses, anything like that, get away. Run away as quick as you can and go Google I need this software for my business, because you are wasting time and money and data and efficiency and accuracy on your spreadsheet.
Yeah, and I think
So
it's more of a time saver more than anything for the fact that,
absolutely.
I mean, the time that you have during the day. I mean, you don't want to be spinning your wheels. You want to be doing the clicks matter and the data matters. So the faster that you can do any of those type of things and customize it for what you need, rather than jumping through some sort of another solution that's a canned solution. If you can do it with 80% less clicks and screens and everything else that you have to do, that's so much better.
Or accuracy. Again, data accuracy, right? Think about when you go to enter data into a cell in a spreadsheet, the likelihood that you may enter the data incorrectly, right? Versus, I mean, yes, if it's a number, you could do that in your CRM or whatever, right? But what's the likelihood that you're going to enter someone's address, right? Incorrectly when you have to re-enter it 3 different times in a spreadsheet versus when it's in a CRM, it's only in there once, and and if you need to update it, the system's going to manage that, right? It's going to say, okay, do you want to go update previous invoices, right, for that address, or only the open invoices, or only the open leads, right? Things like that. But you don't want to go update the address for a closed lead because that went to that old address, right? But if you do it in a spreadsheet, God knows what that's going to update, or as an example. So yeah, don't do it. Please. Please. I love when I walk through an airport and I see people using Excel. They're on the phone, they're talking their leads, blah, 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 blah. And I just want to walk up to them and be like, go get Salesforce, go get, Sugar CRM, go get whatever it is. Please. You'll be in a better place. Your whole team will be in a better place. They won't be with Salesforce, but anyways.
Well, Nate,
That's
so
a
in
whole
your
other.
in your in
Yeah.
your world, and granted you're Foundry, but I mean, if we were to extend that out to manufacturing, just a generic manufacturing facility, are you talking basically just front end people going to use this stuff? People in your office? You're not talking about the guys on the floor that are, pounding sand and pouring metal using it.
Well, in this case, for what we're developing currently for the solution, it's not for the floor, the Foundry floor, but it could be. I mean, it could be the fact that you've got once you've turned that order or that quote into an order, and you're processing that, and you create a job that needs to go out to the plant to be operated. You could have a PC out there that they clock into a specific job, and capture their labor and their time if you needed to, or that sort of thing. It just depends on how sophisticated you want to get with it for the most part, and how
Yeah.
much you want to throw at
Okay.
it.
7 years ago, a company approached us. They were just starting up. They had a very proprietary manufacturing they had a very proprietary um, type of manufacturing, and they didn't think any ERP would work for them. And so we built an ERP for them. Again, they were just a startup, and they used it. Every single person in the company used it. I mean, they didn't use it to control their machines, but they used it to manage their materials that were being fed into the machines, for sure. And they ended up a year and a half ago, selling to a much bigger company, who's owned by an even bigger company. And I actually just found out they're not using our software anymore because they're using, it's a Microsoft product. It's called Great Plains, which is like this ancient accounting software. And they're gonna end up with SAP that the bigger company's using. But in the meantime, the company that bought them is basically making them use Great Plains for now, which Great Plains isn't even supported by Microsoft anymore. But it's working. Again, it's working for them. They're fine. And but because they used our software, I mean, they were able to scale and grow and eventually sell to this bigger company. So, yeah.
So I want to ask you a little bit about, um, let's say someone's interested in getting having you build a solution. That's probably the best way to say it. Having you build a
Sure.
solution.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm going to fall back to my old development days. What does your development cycle look like with a brand new coming out the door?
Yeah, that's
I
a great
said that,
question.
hey, I need a solution to do something. What is it going to look like for the customer and then for you guys to get this developed and
Yeah.
deployed?
Yeah. So the way that we work is, I guess I'd call it trusted agile.
Trusted agile. Okay.
What I mean by that, trusted agile. So what I mean by that is we have a very strange way of working. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. And so the way that we work is, we'll do some discovery up front. We'll look at your current methodology, your current way of doing things. We'll talk about where you want to go. We'll look at your data. We'll look at your, whatever interface you're using, the people that are doing it. And usually we don't even charge for that. It doesn't take us that long, and it's kind of a way to to prove our worth. And then our developers work directly with the client, if possible on site, but in our world today, that's not critical. And the way that we work is very simple. We work in blocks of hours, right? And we come up with a very simple scope of work, but we say right off the bat that it's all going to be just blocks of hours working directly with the people who are going to use the software, and we iterate as we go. And the reason we say that is because first, we go very, very fast. Usually in a matter of weeks, people have, depending on their availability, people have something that they are, they're testing and using, and we want to build a trusting relationship and iterate very quickly, and so we don't even say, what's the scope. I mean, I said there's a simple scope, but we are very open about the fact that we are out of scope on day one. Because typically what happens is we'll start to ask questions like, do you want this with this? Yes, we do. So here's an example. Someone was showing us their very old software the other day, and it had this notes field in it where people put like a date and the person's name and a note, and then the next date and a person's name and the note, all in one big blob of text, right? And I said, okay, in a few hours, we can replace that with a true notes feature, right? That's very basic. And I said, but I want to give you an example of our work, which is that notes feature also includes a documents feature where someone can insert a document with the note. And they said, okay, but does that cost more? And I said, no, it doesn't cost more because everyone always asks for that immediately. They always say, oh, I have a note here. I want to insert a document with it. So we just include it because that's the module. It takes us a little bit longer, but it's part of our module anyways now. And we've learned along the way that that's something that would, we don't even ask that question, but we try to ask the questions along the way to say, do you think you want to email this? Do you think you want to integrate this with something? Do you think you want to, do this with that? And so immediately, they're like, okay, well, that's why we don't even talk about scope, because that's just a note that we add that this is something else that we're going to add, and we're going to spend more time on it.
Oh, okay. Once you start doing it, you mentioned iterations. I'm pretty familiar with the notion of iterative development, and are you rapid prototyping? Are you bringing things in front of the customer, showing them things that go along, making changes as you go? You developing a finished solution and handing it off, saying, "Here you go."
Yeah, no, I know where you're hinting at. You're going to, which is, the classic prod dev deploy environment, right? We work live. So we work live. So we make changes live. Our developers are very adept at knowing what is going to modify data and what is not, and very careful about that. And so we work in what's called, essentially a waterfall method, right? So working live in the solution, being very careful that what we're doing is not going to affect data, and if it's going to be a change that has a significant impact, usually that would be like over a weekend or something like that. We would do it, or in an evening, but otherwise we're working live. And so we train our users to know that when we're on site or when we're working something, you're going to see changes to your screen happening live. And you might see changes to the data as we've discussed it carefully, happening also, or a new field appearing, or things getting moved around, based on what you wanted. And our users quickly adapt to that because it's really cool. right? They love seeing changes happen quickly, and then they can let us know, no, that's not where I want that. I want that over there, or
So
something
you're
like that.
developing,
So
I mean, you're doing this discovery cycle at the beginning, and are you putting together a solution that you can say, okay, here's kind of the starting point. We've migrated data into it or whatever, start using it and we'll start tweaking it
Mhm.
as you go?
Yeah, correct,
Okay.
correct. Yes, yes.
All right. And what about, I'll go again, I'll fall back on my old background. Test and acceptance criteria. Are there, if the user's involved through the development cycle, are your test and
Yeah,
acceptance kind of like implied that they are accepting as they go along? What's the,
that's a great question. So right. So we have a bug submission process, right, where we ask them to record a video of what the issue is, right? And we usually will provide video capture software, but most things, most solution or most desktops have, ways to capture video. And then we do the same thing when we return things, right? So our way of returning it is to show this workflow or this data issue has been solved. Here's how I did it, and here's the result. So
you said, I think I heard you say at some point, you kind of use the phrase, this is developed on the desktop, but deployed in the cloud. Is that no?
no, no. It can be so the solution that we developed with, we can actually deploy on the desktop or or on
Okay.
or on the web or to a Apple mobile device, right? What you described there is uh, when you say cloud, right? The cloud is where it is, right?
Right.
Where the
Right.
solution exists, right? So in the two examples there are, is it on-prem? On the prem, I love
Right.
acronyms or short words. Is it on premises, which is rare these days, or is it in the cloud? That's that's where the solution exists, right? And not how it's deployed. How it's deployed is, or what the interface is for the
Fair enough.
deployment, right? Again, these are all marketing terms that have kind of gotten interspersed along the way. But the way I think about it is, where does the data or the solution exist, right? So,
So where does the data in the solution exist?
well, I mean, yeah. So in our with our environment, it can exist on-prem or it can exist in the cloud, in any cloud. So it can exist on a Microsoft cloud, Azure. It can exist on an AWS cloud. It can exist on a Google cloud. That's rare, but it can exist on a Google cloud. Usually, it's Azure
AWS.
or
And that's something
AWS. Yeah.
that's a quote unquote cloud that the customer owns and maintains. It's not something that you own, or is it something that,
Uh, well, no, we can host it if they want us to, or they can host it. Again, that depends on their expertise, their level of comfort with security, those kinds of things. So it depends on usually how corporate they are, right? So bigger corporations
Sure.
want to own
right,
their
and own their
systems.
data, right?
So
They want to own the
yeah.
access to their data.
Well, everyone wants to own their data with our solutions. I mean, that's a given in the conversation, right? I mean, not only is it important to our customers to own the solution itself, but owning the data is also typically important, especially if they've had some sort of bad experience where that has been an issue.
But if the solution exists and you're hosting the solution, are you hosting the data as well?
Again, maybe. Well, so yeah. So I'm sorry. So the solution and data for us are all together. It's all the back end and front end are all together, right? The where it's hosted, right, is up to the client. Whether it's on their cloud, our cloud, or that
Right.
they're on-prem.
So I guess
So is it easy? Is it easy for them to get a hold of their data if they need it for whatever reason they see fit?
Yes. Yeah, super easy.
do you have to do any?
Yeah.
we're going to get into the weeds here. I could just feel it. What do you guys do any kind of data transformation on their data? I mean, let's just say they've got who knows what they've got when they start off. I got 12 spreadsheets and a small
Yeah.
relational database, and I need them
Yeah.
all put into a system.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So that's an important part of that initial conversation, that initial discovery conversation, right? Because we can't even work on, a solution until we get the data in a good place, right? And that can be time consuming, but very, very worth it, right? So we're experts at creating relational data, systems, and that often is where, if you have existing data, which not everyone does, right? Some people are starting from scratch, but if you, or they're willing to say, let's keep our system in an archive, our existing system in an archive, and start fresh, especially after the conversation. Because as an example, if, like you described, you've got 5 different spreadsheets with tens of thousands of records and a separate some other thing, and you want to try to merge them in a relational way and import that data in, that process, we can create the structure, and that might take, I don't know, 10 hours, right? Or something. Not a lot of time. But doing the data import, that
Sure.
could take 50 hours, right? Manipulating that data and getting it to a point where we can work with that new structure, that could take far longer than creating the new structure and even the new interface, right? And so oftentimes people will say, no, we'll keep that as available as an archive, but we'll start fresh. We'll start from scratch. It's not worth it to keep, to have that data. It all depends on how important, like, having that customer history or that inventory history or whatever it is at your fingertips, or for future use, right? How important that is.
So Nate asked the question about the customer owning the data or getting access to their data. I guess if for whatever reason, right? Let's just who knows what the reason is, but they want to get their data out of your relational system to them. Are they just doing like a database dump? All the tables get dumped to a text file. What does that look like?
Well, are we talking like a one-time thing where they're not using the system anymore? Or are we talking like on an ongoing basis where they want to have access to it? Two different things, right? So, if they want to export it, on a one-time basis, yes, they can export it to Excel or mainly Excel these days, or a data table of some sort, right? Or XML table, yeah, some sort of data table, a JSON table, something like that. On the other hand, what's much, much, much more likely is they want to have regular access to it. And in that case, we have an API already, and they can access the data via API.
Fascinating. Okay.
So, yeah, which is a REST-based API, with JSON access.
The apps that consume that API, do the customers develop those, or you develop them for them, or?
Depends. Totally depends on their expertise versus, if they want us to do it, we can do it. If they have expertise, it's not that hard, right? In our world today, it's not that hard, where many people understand the terms I just used, right? REST-based API, with OAuth and JSON queries, right? Many people know that, and there are many tools out there to help with automating that. So, all we have to do is turn it on, right, and give them credentials, and then they can go to town. Carefully, usually we're giving them read-only access, right? Not write access, because that can get very dangerous very quickly.
Like that quick?
Nate, you'll never have that, Nate.
No. Okay. That sounds cool. Put you on the spot. Sure. Is it a self-describing REST API, or is it a, okay.
No. Yeah. No, because our solutions are always custom, right? So we have to provide the documentation for the data
Right.
and the
okay.
endpoint.
Well, I didn't want to be. I'm not trying to be antagonistic. I just, yeah.
No, not at all. It's important. It's an important question for those that are interested and think that's something they would want. So, that part doesn't take that much time, right? It's a few hours to document and provide. So it's not hard for us to do it I mean, we're going to charge to do that, but it's not. I mean, unless the solution is super complex. But usually, if it's super complex, they don't want access to the whole thing. They want access to, one table or 2 tables or 3 tables. And again, that doesn't take that long to provide that. Create the endpoint and then create the documentation for it.
Okay.
So, and by the way, I hate when someone that we're trying to get access to tells us it's going to take weeks to create that for us. That drives me nuts. So, because I know how much time it takes.
Right. If you just get down to doing it. Yeah.
Just get down and do it. Spend the hour that it takes to do it and send it to me and give me the endpoint and we'll take it from there.
Well, that's so true in almost every line of work I've ever been in. If you just do the work, it doesn't take that long. Sure. It's the putting things off that takes all the time.
Are you a no man or a yes man?
Right. So, get it done or not.
Sexist, but right.
So I get back to the test and acceptance. I mean, so you're developing this with the customer and they're looking at it as it's going along and they're making changes and they're saying, well, I like it over here versus over there, and the workflow this way or that way. At some point, when do you have just sort of a mutual agreement on, hey, it's done? Or
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and we like that, right? We typically, usually when, usually if it's been a few, let's say a month, at least a month or 2 months where we've had very little development time, we'll be like, okay, time to say, let's stop for now, right? And let's go away for a period and start building a list of things. Obviously, if something major comes up or urgent, we're here for you. But otherwise, let's go away for 6 months. And, because why? Why do we do that, right? Because that's where they feel the value of it, right? That's where they are really starting to get the ROI of it. They're not spending money on us anymore, right? So now they're really starting to say, I will add one very important part of this that I feel very strongly about, and that is it's very important that they brand their software. They name it, right? They name it something proprietary to their company, right? So Nate, what your K&N, right, is the name of your Foundry, right?
KN. Please don't confuse me with K and N because that's a filter company.
I'm sorry.
We don't want any trademark issues.
Right? Yeah. So right, so you have to come up with something for your your thing, KN, I don't know, something related
just
to it.
Like
and
that.
It's always fun if it's a fun acronym. Yeah, right. So something that's a fun acronym or a pun or related to the, the thing that it does, right? So, we have a company that's called Stride Mobility that relates to wheelchair parts and things like that, wheelchair fixing, and the software we developed for them, I think they call it Stride Soft or Stride something, right? So, and they don't call it like the adatasol solution, right? Or, something. They call it, or the database, right? They call it StrideSoft. And again, it's all about adding value to their business with their software, right? So we really, really encourage them to do that. And if they don't, then they don't. And then, they call it something. And the other thing that we find is if they're not happy with a part of it, they'll be like, oh, we hate that adatasol solution. They hate, right? We don't like that, right? So name it something after your company. So, so the things you don't like, you own also, because that's also important. It's your, you built it, you decided that other thing you didn't want to spend money on, that's okay. You live with it.
That's brilliant. Sure. Make them name it. Because, there is a sense of ownership at that point, right? And maybe there's even a sense of pride, maybe.
So I love telling these stories, of course, because, it's important. So we built some software for an energy repricing company. They go into big companies that use a lot of energy, and they will give them the best price from like 12 other, energy companies. Here in Ohio, we have energy companies can buy and sell energy from other companies, right? Thank you. Deregulated. Thank you. Deregulated energy. So anyways, this company that we built software for got a salesperson from one of their competitors, and their competitor had 12 software developers and like 20 other people in their administration, right? And our company, the software that we built the company for, had one administrative person, like 8 salespeople, right, and like one other, other person, because our software did everything, did all the stuff for them, right? So they didn't need all those administrative people and developers and all that building, helping to continually build the software and do all of that. So, and that's what you aim for, right? You aim to have, and it's funny because this is always a sensitive topic, but right, it's an easier topic if you're doing it at the start of your company versus somewhere in the middle, right? But you're aiming to have less people, right? That's part of it, because those people are taking up time and money, and at the end of the day, you want software that is doing the stuff for you, and the people aren't doing it. Now, do we say we're eliminating people? Hopefully not. I mean, hopefully those people can go do other things in your company, right? But sometimes, yes. That's the hard reality, is sometimes that person that is a middle person managing orders or managing traffic or managing inventory is not going to be needed to do that anymore.
Hmm.
That's ROI.
Sure.
So,
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, and that's really the goal in manufacturing or in business in general, is to be as efficient with your time as possible so that you can get more done in the same amount of time. So that's the whole
right.
point in finding a solution that works for you, rather than, because a canned solution, I mean, it's trying to come up with answers and solutions for many, many, many manufacturers, rather than just the one type or two types that's in your
Maybe,
facility.
maybe. I mean, I can imagine that there is ERP software out there specifically for metal foundries, right?
Sure.
Uh, right? And so some of it is probably very, very good. Maybe it's too expensive for a very small foundry, or maybe again that foundry has proprietary things or proprietary materials or something else that's proprietary that makes it worth doing, custom software for all or part of their business. But again, if that foundry software or veterinary software or HVAC software does 95% of what you need it to do, then I don't know that what we're going to do is going to be worth it. So,
Sure.
you know,
Yeah, you just got to find the right solution that does what you need, for sure.
yes. But again, this is what I said this at the beginning, and I'll say it again. We love the customers that have gone through that process, right? And know what they want after going through that process, right?
Sure.
Versus the other way around. So we're losing a customer right now that's been our customer for like 8 years, spent a ton of money on our software over the 8 years. They have quadrupled the size of their business, but they got a new VP of sales who's now part owner of the company. And for the last 4 years, he's been grousing about our software. And they spent time and they picked an ERP system. And they've spent the last year and a half implementing that ERP system. Keeps getting pushed off and pushed off. It just got pushed off for another 6 months. And in the end, if we want them back, which we're not sure we do, but if we want them back, they will come back to us. And they will have so much more appreciation for the software we created for them than they did for the last 8 years, because they've gone through that painful, very painful process with this other ERP software.
Yeah, it takes a lot to implement an ERP system. I mean, especially if I've participated in one in Oklahoma when we transitioned away from the solution that you'd done, and then to a canned ERP solution, and it took a team of us to do it. And it was, I mean, very intelligent guys that had done it multiple times, and it was still not painless. Lots of hours and lots of time in front of the keyboard, and even the one that we did at Kansas Casting, it was so painful. I mean, poor Gavin, he was hand tamping a lot of that information just because it didn't get the migration from the previous solution to the Foundry, quote unquote, ERP was dismal. I mean, it was non-existent for the most part. It was almost like they were kind of threw their hands in the air, like, "Hey, you guys are going to have to do this this data. We can't get it any other way." So that was kind of one of those things where you're like kind of beat your head against a wall. Not always painless by any means.
Yeah, well, and a percentage of ERP implementations, and there's industry things depending on which ERP it is and things like that, fail, right? Because too much time, too much money, too much, or too much change. That's just as much an issue, right? In the end, some very important person said, no, 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 this is it. I'm not changing this part of my business. We spent 6 months on it. Still doesn't do what I want it to do. You're out of here. So, but I think some high percentage do, or they wouldn't be, succeeding as much as they do. So,
Sure. And I think you've already touched on it multiple times, is that, if you can find something that does 95% of what you need to do, you can stomach the other 5%. Yeah, everybody's not happy. Bob over here, he might be upset about the processes that he has to do, but in reality, it'll work, and you can find a workaround for some of that sort of thing. Now, sometimes the workaround might involve a spreadsheet, and then in that case, you might need to find a solution for the other 5%. That's another tool that you can develop.
yeah, we have a solution. So one of our clients is a tire manufacturer, and their larger owner runs SAP. They run SAP also, but their warranty SAP. I mean, they could, I'm sure, build a warranty module for it, but who knows how much it would cost and time and all that. So we created a warranty module for them, and we pull data out of SAP and we push data into SAP. But the actual warranty workflows are all done in our system, because it would be too time consuming, and in the end, probably not as good as what we do in our warranty module. So,
Yeah. Well, it's good that there's a solution that you can intermingle between the two. So. Are they doing
yeah,
everything in SAP then, in that situation with the tire warranty module?
no, the data. So we're pulling the data out. We're pulling sales data and pricing data out, and then they're adding data in, like when they do the inspections and when they get an RMA in, right? And then they're uploading the RMA back to SAP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
So with when it comes to that and the solutions and the companies that you're developed or purchased through adatasol, at what point? I mean, you're the second person we've had on the podcast that has anything to do with EOS, and before that, I had no
Oh.
idea what EOS even was.
Oh yeah.
When Julie
That's
was
a whole
on,
separate. But yeah.
and so it's interesting that there would be multiple individuals that have the relationship like that. Um, how does that drive a data
Well,
sol and the
so,
team?
yeah. So I mean, EOS, entrepreneurial operating system, right? Um, is a set of techniques, right, to help you scale your business. And so and like things in the past, it's kind of taken fire in our world today. There are other things now biting at its heels, by the way. But yeah, I mean, the last 10 years, EOS has been, if you're looking to scale your business and you Google, I want help scaling my business, right? I mean, EOS is, kind of the leading thing for that. So it doesn't matter what business you're in, but it only works up to a certain size business in EOS's recommendation. So, and typically that's, I want to say like 100 people, something like that. So it's small businesses. It doesn't work in larger businesses. There are certainly other methods to do it there, but in small businesses, it's really, really good to help you figure out how to scale your business. So yes, when we were figuring out how to scale our business, one of my mentors at the time recommended that I look into EOS, and we started running it around 2018. And it took a while to figure out the right team to implement it within our company. and how to run it and how to run it within our company. We honed it a little bit for our business. But in the meantime, we became EOS experts, and I became an EOS expert, and then kind of a trainer myself. I'm not what's called an implementer, but I realized that I like doing the integration side of it, and so I've done some consulting as an integrator, like essentially a fractional integrator, because I really like helping companies execute EOS, and so that's been kind of a little side gig for me.
Go. Have you written any solutions for EOS for your little side gig?
No, well, actually, yes, because we're a software company. We did build a solution to do quarterly conversations. So part of the EOS methodology is every quarter you're supposed to have a conversation with the people that are accountable to you, and you kind of go through an evaluation process, a 360 evaluation process. And there's a very strict structure for it. So we built a piece of software to do that we like. Having said that, there are two very, very good pieces of software out there to run EOS, one of which is called 90.io, and then EOS now has their own version of software that they're iterating to make it as good as 90.io. So
interesting.
Yeah, so I would not go up and compete against either of those two, leaders in the industry.
Right. Well, it can be used as the solution that you need for yourself. That's for sure.
Yeah. So.
Well, cool. Okay. Well, as far as the solutions that you can provide to people, especially for different aspects of their business, whether they're Foundry related or not, or just business in general, manufacturing or anything like that, we can share your information with those on the podcast in the description, so that those guys can find you guys, and perhaps you can provide a solution, and perhaps you can point them in the right direction of something that might actually work for them, that's already built, that might scale for what they need.
Yeah, I mean, again, to me, it's all about building trust right from the get-go, right? And so that starts from I guess a no, right, from the start, right? We probably can't, or there probably is something else out there already, and so why spend money on us when let's take a look at that, and what's your journey already been to where you are right now?
Sure, that makes sense.
Well, this seems like a good place to
Right.
to wrap things up. Dan, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. For me, always fascinating to talk to someone who's kind of a kindred spirit in the software world. Even though we may have developed software a little bit differently, it's still kind of nice to chat about stuff like this, and having fewer and fewer opportunities in my world, in my retirement world, to do that. So I want to thank you, Nate. Yeah, thank you. And Nate, thank you again for your help. And Dan, we will put links to your to adatasol down in the description, so people can reach out to you if they're interested in going further with a little bit of a discussion.
Great. Thank you. I
Guys.
appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.